there's one thing that Nissan has taught us with the Qashqai is that there's a growing demand for 4x4 style road biased cars with the running costs of an everyday family runabout. Yes, the crossover may be a relatively new style of car, but some manufacturers are looking to put their own individual and sometimes quirky stamp on it, a bit like Citroen with this, the C4 Cactus. From the outside, it certainly stands out on the looks department. Its curvaceous profile, those squinting headlamps and these giant rubbery panels on the side called air bump, which protect it from discourteous drivers in tight parking spaces, give it something of a quirky nature, which is what Citroen became famous for back in the 60s. One thing's for sure, you certainly won't lose it in Sainsbury's car park. Inside, the dash is nicely designed. It's all very clean and clutter-free, if a little cheap to touch. But the big bugbear is that everything is controlled via this 7-inch touchscreen infotainment system. It's very fiddly to use and distracting if you're trying to change the temperature and use a sat-nav whilst on the move. The seating position is relatively low by crossover standards, but the seat can be raised using this ratchet lever down by my right. The only downside though is the steering wheel only adjusts for height, it doesn't adjust for reach, so it does make finding that perfect driving position a little compromised. Visibility also is a bit compromised in the interest of styling too. Those red pillars are a little on the thick side and make reverse parking just that bit more tricky. Space isn't something to worry about either. Up front there's ample head and legroom, and in the back there's plenty of room for 3 people. One thing you may be a bit surprised to find though is that there aren't any electric adjustable windows. The other thing is that it doesn't feature split folding rear seats, so it's not what you'd call versatile. With all the seats in place, it offers 358 litres of space, which expands to 1,170 litres when you fold them down. The load lip is pretty high though, so if you're lifting larger, heavier items, it may prove tricky. Engine-wise, there's a mix of low-capacity petrol and diesel engines. The range topping 1.6 litre blue HDI won't set pulses alight though. It'll do 0 to 60 in over 10 seconds and keep going to a top speed of just 114 miles per hour. Where it will make you happy though is at the pumps. It'll do an average fuel economy of over 80 miles per gallon while emitting just 87 grams per kilometre of CO2. That makes it road tax exempt. As you'd expect then for a car more focused on economy, it's more of a relaxed cruiser than a warm hatch wannabe. The suspension is supple enough to iron out potholes and imperfections in the road, but the big problem is that it means that there's plenty of lean through the bends. The 5-speed gearbox also doesn't do it any favours, and the steering is also a bit vague.